this was the old definition of rape. Okay, this is from the U.S. Justice Department decides these things. And the old one, which was there for 80 years, rape means the carnal knowledge of a female forcibly and against her will. Okay? Now the new definition is this: penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of the victim. Notice what changed. What word went absent? Forcibly. That's what went absent. Forcibly. And without the consent of the victim. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? Actually, we don't know. That could be anything, couldn't it?
So I give you misogynist and overall bad person, reprobate, one of the deplorables in the giant basket, Phil Cook.
Thank you very much. Everybody hear me okay? I'm not going to really talk a whole bunch about the abuse and domestic violence and things like that, because I think you already know the literature pretty well. I do want to say, however, that you probably didn't notice, but I don't look quite the same as in the profile picture in the program. You know, it's my personal response to the Gillette ad. That's not true. That's not true. My wife said, you know, after a few days of stubble, you might look okay with a beard. So, okay, well, I'm not going to argue with that. I do want to talk about progress and promise in sort of the entire men's movement, if you will. But I do want to talk about domestic violence in terms of, well, has there been any progress at all? I mean, has there anything changed in those terms since the first edition came out in 1987, and then the second edition 2009? And the answer is yes. Yes. Let me tell you a little bit about SAFE, Stop Abuse for Everyone. I mentioned this to panel earlier. Sorry you're going to hear it again. And it was an organization I co-founded, 20 years ago, something like that. Don't run it any longer. I just, help out and give support if I can. And let me tell you about the work they're doing. And it's very important, I think. I asked Diana Thompson, who runs it, what we need is a resource, a directory of shelters and hotlines that actually do help men, and really help men, not just lip service. Where are they? How can we find them? How can we investigate whether they really do the work they say they're doing? And she has put together a national database of who's naughty, who's nice. Okay, there's an app you can go to, and yeah, here's a place here that you can go to, and they really do help. That's very important. And this includes gay men and lesbians too, who also have been left out of the picture in many ways. I just think that's a wonderful first step. And the reason we have to have it is because, in the doctor's offices or wherever you get okay, here's a National Domestic Violence Hotline, right? If you called it and you're a man, they have no idea whether the local agency they're referring you to helps men or doesn't help men. They have no idea. They don't want to know. It's just it. So we've got to find out who's naughty, who's nice. And the good news is, I was speaking at a shelter in Phoenix, and yeah, they're starting. They've got a separate facility for men. They're on it. They understand the dynamics of domestic violence and how it's often mutually reciprocal. and they run a wonderful program. Now, you don't know that they exist. That's okay. They don't want you to know. In other words, they don't care about publicity and stuff.
Hey you! Yes, you watching this video. Did you miss out on going to the International Conference on Men's Issues? Or did you go and now you missed the fun times you had at this amazing event? Experience the magic of ICMI 2019 again, or for the very first time, with Honey Badger Radio's ICMI disc set. The disc set brings ICMI presentations together in one convenient package, as well as disc set exclusive Badger bonus content. Enjoy behind-the-scenes Badger interviews with free speech and men's issues luminaries, like Sargon, Janice Fiamengo, and Count Dankula, as well as a never-before-seen Badger cartoon. Also available is sparkling ICMI merch, such as our professionally designed program book, sticker sets, badges, and more. Go to feedthebadger.com and claim a piece of men's rights history for yourself.
There's other agencies that I've talked with, and they're there. They're ready. They get it. I mean, they really, really get it. That, you know, there is mutual combat. That sometimes only the man is the aggressor and sometimes only the woman is. Most of the time, it's mutual combat. They're out there. We need to create a better network so they can network with us and really provide comprehensive services, which many of them really do want to do. And it's growing. You can feel it. And I think the SAFE directory is going to really help strengthen that coalition, as opposed to the state domestic violence coalitions who couldn't care less. So that's one thing. They have a speakers bureau, and they have educational brochures in English and Spanish. And there's a, way back when, 20 years ago, SAFE produced the very first brochures for gay men that were nationally available, and the very first brochures for lesbian victims as well. So there's been real progress, and I think I can feel it, I can see it, and it's getting better. And the message to really help people, rather than define it in gender terms, is growing, and it's better, much better than it was. And it's true in terms of media, too. I did a first interview with Bill O'Reilly, and he basically laughed in my face. You know, men can't be beat up by a woman. You know, he's 6'10" or something. You know, he couldn't imagine it. Next interview, like 2 years later, oh, well, yeah, I guess it happens. You know, so there's a sea change in media. There's a sea change in terms of provision of services, and it's growing. Maybe incrementally, but it's there. There is, of course, a great deal of concern about other issues. What happened with the new definition of rape is, well, it should be really concerning to everybody. Let me just read something here. This was the old definition of rape. Okay, this is from the U.S. Justice Department, decides these things. And the old one, which was there for 80 years, rape means the carnal knowledge of a female forcibly and against her will. Okay? Now, the new definition is this: penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person without the consent of the victim. Notice what changed. What word went absent? Forcibly. That's what went absent. Forcibly. And without the consent of the victim. Now, what does that mean? What does that mean? Actually, we don't know. That could be anything, couldn't it? Well, I said yes, but I really meant no. Whatever. It means every hands-on teenager in their daddy's basement is at risk. And that's what that means. And who did it? I was on this conference call, and and I listened in. You couldn't ask questions, just listening in. And they put out a press release. Who made that new definition happen? Feminist majority. We did it. We changed the definition. Well, what does that mean? It's just the definition is changing. Well, it means that state law is going to follow suit because the federal government says this is the new definition. That means what rape is, right, is going to increase, obviously, right? It's going to go way up. It's only been about, 3 years in the making, so we won't see this, immediately, but it's already beginning. And certainly, this emphasis by feminist majority has already translated into the Title IX things we've seen on campus, right? It's the same kind of thing. What is consent? Well, whatever I say it is. So that's not good. It's not good. However, if you look at academia, I think, in Title IX and what's going on there, there's been some changes. Of course, you probably know about the Betsy DeVos new guidelines for Title IX, right? You're familiar with that? Yeah, okay, you know about that. And so there's that's a change, right? It's a significant change. The Dear Colleague letter is basically rescinded, but on college campuses, most of them are still following that Dear Colleague guideline. They're not changing. But I think over time, they will. Yeah, it's going to take some time. And the new challenges, which are very creative, I think, of the lawyers, the database that was spoken of during the panel, there's a lot of, there's a coalition going on of lawyers and defense lawyers in particular, and, they're challenging all of that stuff. There's 300 lawsuits now in academia against Title IX and the consent and Dear Colleague guidelines without, protest against due process. So will those challenges succeed? And of course, there's the new class action lawsuit against Title IX and the Dear Colleague stuff. And that's what, in the last month, I think, the class action suits. Now I think there's 2 of those now. Will they succeed? Actually, I think they will. It's going to take a long time, several years at the very least, but I think we're going to see some changes in Title IX and how these cases are adjudicated, and we're finally going to recognize that due process matters. It's going to happen. What about family court? What progress has been made there, if any? Well, and what policies could we pursue that would actually be effective and practical? You don't know this. There's a little county in Kansas, Sedgwick County, S-E-D-G-W-I-C-K. You know what they do? They don't hear family court anymore. They don't do custody cases anymore. They're out of there. Judge Beardsley said, "The hell with this. I'm not going to do it anymore. This is insane." And he just banged the gavel and said, "Nah." Didn't go to the legislature. He figured, I'm a judge. I've got authority of how my court is run, and this is what we're going to do. So it starts with children of divorce classes, mandatory. You're divorcing with minor children, you got to go to this class. I think in Sedgwick they do 3 weeks. Some areas of the country they do 4. I think 3 different sessions is adequate. 4 is fine. Atlanta has it, and I was able to pass a law in the state of Oregon. It only took 2 sessions, which wasn't bad. And now children of divorce classes are mandatory in about 3/4 of the counties of the state of Oregon. The judges can opt in or opt out of such a program. Most went with it. Why? Well, of course, it starts with basic information. Starts with, divorce is bad for kids. You know that? And here's the stats. That's just basic information. But not everybody knows those stats, right? So there's a basis. And then it goes into communication skills. Don't badmouth the other parent, okay, because it hurts your relationship when you do that. Okay, some basic information like that. Now, we don't have, Sedgwick does not have the funds to do grants. You know, get a grant and study the statistics on it. But anecdotally, they tell me that 90% of the parents mandated to such classes resent the hell out of it. When they finish, 90% said, hey, that was good stuff. And after going to the class, a significant number, the data we don't have in terms of the percentages, decide not to divorce at all. That's not a bad thing. Okay, that's step one. Step two is mandatory mediation. Now, most of you are probably aware that in most places in this country, and Australia as well, it may be mandated or not, and throughout the English-speaking world, mandatory mediation is part of the system already. You'll find that in most places within the United States, certainly. And basically, you got 3 sessions. If you can come to agreement and agree on a parenting plan, you know, we're done. You don't have to go to court. You don't have to fight over it and stuff like that. Okay. So you got the first step, and you got the second step. All right, you still can't agree. No parenting plan, no, I disagree, I want full custody, whatever. And so the next step is court-appointed child custody evaluators. You can't go out and buy your own hired gun anymore. We have a panel the child custody evaluators, and they're going to do the work, and you can't hire them. Okay? I'm not saying there couldn't be bias among those evaluators within that court system, but it's a hell of a lot better than hired guns, right? And a lot of expense, and it's just a better system. Okay? You can't do it. Now, in Portland, a lawyer friend and I did a thing, and we took on the atom bomb. What's the atom bomb of child custody disputes? Child sex abuse, right? Now, the APA did a study many years ago, looked at 500 cleared cases. I mean, okay, this is done, it's over, and we looked at how many were real, how many weren't during child custody issues. Well, 60% were true, 40% were false. What do you do with that? Well, what we do now is, it's hired gun time. Come on, let's spend the kids' college education. You buy your expert for 50 grand, and you buy your expert for 50 grand, and here we go. And that's 50 grand, it's cheap. Court said, in Sedgwick, well, actually in Portland, they don't, I'm not sure they do this in Sedgwick, but in Portland, we did a voluntary thing, wrote up a contract basically, and said, all right, no more hired guns. We're going to hire all the hired guns in town. And it's going to be a panel. And you got to collectively agree on the recommendation to the court. And surprisingly enough, the hired guns in town agreed. And they, you know, started having regular meetings, and they began to evaluate. Now, both parties had to agree to this, right? Because that's the only way that they could do it. But I would say that following the Sedgwick model, we could do that with that most egregious atom bomb thing in family court as well. No more hired gun experts. You got to collectively agree and make a judgment, you know, without some kind of, they make less money, but a lot of them said, you know, that's a better system. So I think that could be implemented. And then we look at other progress. I mean, if you'd have told me 5 years ago that 21 states would pass shared parenting legislation, I would have gone, huh? Did that happen? Yeah, it did. 21 states. Kentucky is the best model. But now 21 states in just the last 5 years have passed shared parenting legislation. And don't think it's necessary politically a conservative cause or a liberal cause, okay? In North Carolina, yeah, Molly Olson, you know, she's just working her heart out, God bless her, in getting shared parenting passed there. She failed, again, in the legislature, but her allies were not the Republicans, it was the Democrats. And the Republicans were against it. So it's not always a conservative or liberal thing going on here, right? You got to make the case for it. Oh, only 10 minutes left. Oh, my goodness. And that requires work. And I want to talk mainly about work in a little bit. I do want to make sure I don't leave out a brief history of the Coalition for White House Council on Boys and Men. What happened is Warren Farrell, you guys know of. He sends his regards, by the way. Couldn't be with us today. I'm speaking for him, but to hell with him. He sends his regards. He knows about you, and he loves you. So the Obama administration decided to have the White House Council on Women and Girls. And the concept is really kind of cool. It means that every cabinet department joins this council and has input, has a representative on it, right? And this is to coalesce government programs, making sure that it's not, you know, compartmentalized here, compartmentalized there. They all have to get together and talk about the issues facing women and girls. So they asked Warren to be part of that, and he said, well, no, how about a council for boys and men? And they said, okay, send us a proposal. So Tom Golden, I, a number of other people, 30 of us, put together a proposal with Warren's leadership, and we sent it to him after a year's worth of work. And the Boy Scouts, we had a representative from the Boy Scouts of America ready to present this to the President of the United States. Got clearance. He gets to the Oval Office. 5 minutes before the meeting with the President, Valerie Jarrett comes in and says, nope, can't do it. Not going to talk to him about that. Now, of course, you go in and talk to the President of the United States, and it's not on the agenda, you know, be back again, right? So that's what happened there. And now we're at the stage with this new administration. Now, a number of people who were initially involved, not a huge number, but say a third in that original coalition, said, nah, I don't care if Trump administration does anything good, I'm against it. And so they left. Okay, that's fine. And so we've had a number of meetings with members of this administration, and we may be making some progress. I'll just leave it at that, okay? Fairly good context. One of the contacts came because we spent a bunch of money, went to Iowa with our TV crew, and we got a little donation. It was enough to cover the cost. And we're all volunteer organization, by the way. And we spoke with 7 presidential candidates, okay, and asked them, oh, what do you think? And, you know, here's the full transcript and stuff, but you're kind of going to be kind of amazed. Here's Beto O'Rourke. I'm going to look at this. Will you work with us to create a White House Council on Boys and Men? Yes. I was really proud when Obama in the State of the Union address and talked about the challenges facing black and brown boys in America, and it's something we really need to talk about. My dad, before he died, said to me, I worry a kid growing up just like me, poor, black, to a single mom, will have or get a chance to be born in 1936 and today, and it's still the same word. It's right. And Cory Booker says, right, from mass incarceration to being the majority in the homicides in this country. So yes, Cory Booker, yes, I agree. Tim Ryan, good question. I think part of it is to make sure that we provide. Government's role is better, always going to be somewhat peripheral to that essential relationship between a father and a son. He's worried about the inmates. He's worried about the poor kids. He's worried about fatherless families. All 7 of the presidential candidates we spoke with agreed. All 7, okay? And these are all Democrats. And then we got the conservative side, the commentators on Fox News, Martha McCallum, Laura Ingraham. Laura Ingraham said, well, you know, I'm a conservative. I don't like new policies and more government on anything. But you know what? On this one, it's important. It's really important. And yes, I am in favor. So you have this, you know, sort of bizarre kind of thing where both liberals and conservatives are in agreement on something. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? You know, and I want to speak real briefly about the Men's Health Network as well. You know, they're doing the basic stuff. You know, they're in Congress every day. They're doing seminars on men's health. They have the Men's Health Run, November. You know about that, right? Movember, okay, the mustache thing. That's all Men's Health Network stuff. Okay, fantastic organization. And they're doing things on the local level that you might not be aware of. Here's one in Billings, Montana. A seminar designed to encourage and promote responsible fatherhood and motherhood. Individuals gain a deeper appreciation for the past and understanding of their true identity, self-worth, and infinite ability to positively influence their children's lives by creating safe and happy homes. We've involved CPS, TNF, social service providers, tribal leaders, district and tribal court judges, fathers, mothers, grandparents, and personnel, all encouraged to attend. Topics include fathers and mothers as leaders, positive ways to build relationships, addressing family violence and abuse. Now there's a program, isn't it? Okay? So there's a lot going on in a very positive way to increase and encourage and do away with fatherlessness, which is a, you know, as you all know, a central part of what's going on and what needs to change. And certainly the coalition, one of our key things is education. Boys are doing worse in school. You all know that, right? How can we effectively increase their participation, put recess back in, many other steps we can take to increase boys' educational opportunities. And there are actual things that can be done. Now, I would say this. I'm not saying you shouldn't do online petitions, post on Facebook, whatever. Go ahead, do YouTube videos, fine. I don't do them, I don't know how to. It doesn't matter. But I will say this. If you want change, you got to get down and dirty and do it in person. Every legislature, every member of Congress has a sign. Welcome, come in. If you're a constituent, potential voter, oh sure, come on in. I don't care if you're a crazy person. There might be another crazy person who also could vote. They're going to talk to you. You got to get to them. You got to be specific. You got to pound the pavement, walk the marble halls of the legislature, come up with a specific proposal. I don't care which reform you want. You got to get in their face. You got to talk to them respectfully, and you got to give them a clear roadmap to the future. And if you look at the programs that can be implemented in an effective manner, you'll win. Thanks very much. I look forward to your questions.
Okay, as always, we're going to do questions. Line up at the microphone over here. So anyone with a question, please line up at the mic, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, if you have a question, since I'm a former radio TV guy, if you got a question about how better to, you know, get media coverage, especially in the local level, you know, that's a good question. If you don't want to do it now, ask me later, okay? Go ahead.
Thanks for your presentation, Robert.
Sure.
My question is about the Democrats versus Republicans. It's good news that Democratic candidates say that they're in favor of it, but what I'm wondering is whether it's still, you need the Republicans not because they're more necessarily sympathetic to men, but that they would be the only party to stand up to the inevitable feminist opposition to the Council on Boys and Men.
Yeah, of course, there's inevitable, opposition. It's a political question. There's going to be opposition. What do you expect? I think you've got to find allies. And I think I learned from a guy who really knows D.C. really well, been there 30 years. So you got to find out first, personally, do they have sons? Find that out first. Do they have children? Find that out first. Speak to their personal identity and personal issues. What did O'Rourke say? My dad, okay? I don't want him to not be there, okay? So you find out that personal part, and then they open up, and the politics don't go away, right? But they're much, much lessened. And you can reach out to either side. You talk effectively, you talk on a personal level, and you give them a roadmap. You got to be specific about what could be done, and they'll listen. And forget political party. Get to the heart first. The mind will follow.
Yeah, hi, it's Ken Jolivet here. You talked about the definition of rape being expanded and loosened, let's say. And then we also know about domestic violence. The definition, Trump changed it back to the good definition, let's say, I think we'd all agree, back to the pragmatic, realistic one. So if Trump did that for domestic violence, and that's a good thing, and any comments you have on that, and then do you see that changing for the definition of rape? Is it going to go back, or is it going to get worse, or where are we going with that?
Good question. Will it go back? Probably not. Probably not. It's so ingrained, particularly in the dear colleague thing, okay, that definition without consent, whatever the hell that means, is going to be around for a while. It's going to take a long time before there's any change, especially putting that word in forcibly. I mean, that's the key. You take that out, anything's rape. It just bang. You take out the word forcibly, anything is. So putting that word back in, man, we don't have, billions and billions and billions of dollars, right, to put that in, and lobby Congress or lobby the White House, and it's billions, About 5 years ago, we were able to knock it down from this is a Violence Against Women Act, able to knock it down from 1 billion to 3/4 of a billion. So there was that victory. It took us a year, but we got that done. And that's where the whole mantra, because of that, because it was money, the whole mantra of the war against women began with that effort, and that's where it came from. Actually, that's how it started.
Hi, my name is Shelby Dotson.
Hi, Shelby.
You were saying that you interviewed Democratic candidates,
yes,
and behind closed doors, they admitted that men's rights are an issue. In your opinion, why do you think they won't outwardly admit that?
Oh, no, they did it on videotape.
Oh,
they got them on the website.
Okay.
Go to the WhiteHouseCouncil.org. I want a card. It's on my card. Yeah, it's on video. What we did is we're doing a slow rollout right now. We started with Yang, I believe, who was very supportive. You don't know him very much. He's the entrepreneur Democratic candidate, right? So we started with him and contrasted that with the conservative commentators. The next one we did was Kristen Gillibrand, and she said flat out, oh yeah, if I'm elected president, there'll be a commission for boys and men. So we put that on. And then the next one's going to be Hickenlooper, who spent an hour with us, with Warren. Sat down for an hour at this Iowa thing. And, of course, he's totally in favor of it, and it was wonderfully insightful. And then the next one is going to be all 7, all at once, in terms of a news release. The prior news releases just went to our core supporters, the petition signers and folks like that, about 2,500 of those. And then I got a pretty good list of major media folks put together. And so in about 3 weeks, we'll put that out as a major news release. Here's all 7, their most pertinent comments. Here's the video links and so on. And that's what we'll do next in about 3 weeks. I contacted Tulsi Gabbard's staff, who I actually happen to have had some contact with, and said, all right, 3 weeks, give us your video comment. She was at Iowa. We just couldn't, get her in time, and we'll see if she replies as well. And then, of course, after that, we'll be doing all presidential candidates, Biden, and the ones that weren't in Iowa at that particular time, and we'll hit them all. And, what's your comment? I mean, so-and-so said it, so you better get on board, baby. That kind of thing, the kind of thing politicians generally respond to. So we'll see what happens in that regard. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. I used to live in D.C., and I've lobbied once or twice.
Oh, good. We'll come recruit you. Make sure you get my card.
Sure
We're
thing.
ready for you.
Well, I live in Minnesota now, but, if I'm... when I go back home and see family, I could still do that. But
okay.
So you did touch on it, but what are some of the things you do to manage changes between each administration, or what do you have planned? Because our current administration, we've had a couple of bones thrown our way, and it's nice, but the next administration that may come, or even attitudes may change with the current administration if President Trump's reelected. What are you doing to manage those changes, administration? Right. And what are some, I'm just actually kind of curious myself, what are some of the topics that you're hitting on when you actually go and talk to staffers and senator staffers? Well,
mainly we're going to hit them with fatherlessness. We're going to hit them with health issues, okay? Because health is something, there should be, of course, a Department of Men's Health as well as there should be a Department of Women's Health. There are 9 executive level departments exclusively for women. Exclusively. If you count VAWA, it'd be 10. And absolutely 0 for men. Except Men's Health Network, this past year, did get instituted a Department of Indian Men's Health for the first time. And that's an important inroad. It's a step getting there. As for continuation after this administration or any administration, we hope that the council itself, this interactive interagency grouping, will appoint an advisory board, us, okay, and it's not just the Washington insiders who are going to be picked for that advisory board, we hope. We'll see if that happens or not. There's a danger there, absolutely. But if we have the council in place, all right, that's a victory. And, the toughest thing in the world to stop, as Ronald Reagan said, is the government agency once instituted. You can't kill it. So I think if we start someplace, it can continue even after changes in administration.
Hi. I'm interested in what you said about the Democrat candidates and the sorry. I'm interested. The Democrat candidates sounding very positive about the whole men's rights. I'm from the UK, and we've just got a new prime minister.
Right.
So we had a bit of a competition. So I'm curious to throw this question out. Do you think it's possible for a presidential candidate not to be a feminist in this day and age?
Well, it depends on your definition of what feminism is, and they're going to have their own definition and all that stuff. I don't really care. They can call themselves a feminist. They can call themselves a whatever, just as long as they're not part of the KKK, I guess. I don't really care about what they think is going to be appealing to voters or not, and that's their business, not mine. I don't care. I just don't care. But I think in speaking to these 7 people that they're more aware than you might think, and it's obvious by their comments. Go to the website, and you can see the videos in full if you wish, and they're all up. There's recognition of the issues we're talking about. They recognize the devastating effects of fatherlessness on this society. They do. I mean, I am convinced of that. Now, you can spin it any way you want to, And what about more male teachers? Or Kristen Gillibrand had a clever phrase, I thought, actually. She said, well, the problem is we don't pay teachers enough, pay teachers more, and then the men will want our jobs. Well, that's not bad, is it? You know, it's a clever turn of phrase. You know, I don't have a problem with whatever label they want to place themselves on. But the fact that they are recognizing these issues, I think, is significant. And I think the fact that we spend some money and time and ask them directly on the record, what is your position on these issues? And of course, the mainstream media hasn't asked them those questions once, right? But now that we have, maybe even the mainstream media will begin to ask those questions as well. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
I can't believe it. The timing could not have been more perfect because I was just standing up to essentially say time's up. So we are going to adjourn for 15 minutes as usual, and we will come back to hear